I'm Alex, 25 years old, and the youngest professional in my company. I've always been ambitious, the kind of woman who keeps her head down, works harder than anyone else, and dreams bigger than most people expect. Maybe it's because I was raised to believe that I had to prove myself, not just to the world, but to myself. At this stage of my life, everything felt like it was moving in the right direction. I was newly engaged to a man who adored me, and in my career, I had just been given one of the most important tasks I'd ever faced, delivering a major presentation to clients on behalf of the company. The day of the presentation, I stood in front of the sleek conference room, palms slightly sweaty, but my mind sharp as a blade. I had rehearsed for nights, reworking my slides until they shone with clarity and precision. The clients from outside companies sat across the table, their expressions unreadable, and behind them sat my own colleagues, senior officers, managers, and my boss, Denial. She was a woman who commanded attention wherever she went, 35 years old, confident, and elegant in a way that felt effortless. Her reputation was formidable, and she wasn't someone who handed out compliments lightly. As I began to speak, my nerves slowly melted away. The words flowed from me like I had rehearsed in front of the mirror 100 times. I made eye contact, explained the figures with passion, and even cracked a light joke that earned a few chuckles. By the time I finished, the clients looked impressed. They exchanged nods with one another, and I felt a rush of relief and pride flood through me. For a moment, there was silence, then polite applause filled the room. But what caught me off guard was the way Denial looked at me, her eyes sharp yet warm, her lips curled into the slightest of smiles. She clapped louder than anyone else, and when the meeting wrapped up, she stood and said in front of everyone, "Excellent work, Alex. That was one of the best presentations I've seen in a long time." Her words struck me like a beam of sunlight breaking through clouds. I smiled politely, murmured a thank you, but inside I was glowing. Praise from her meant something, it wasn't tossed around casually. Later that day, as the office quieted down, she walked past my desk. I thought she would simply leave for the evening, but she paused. "You handled yourself brilliantly today," she said, her tone softer than before. "You have a natural command of the room. Don't lose that." I managed to smile, though my heart beat faster. "Thank you, That means a lot coming from you." She studied me for a moment, and I suddenly became aware of everything, the way my hair fell over my shoulders, the faint tremor in my hands as I held a pen, even the nervous flutter in my stomach. There was something in her gaze, an intensity one wasn't used to, but before I could process it, she nodded and walked away. In the days that followed, things began to change. It was subtle at first. A compliment here, a small word of encouragement there. She would assign me projects directly, ones I knew others in the office were eager for. Sometimes she would stop by my desk just to ask how I was doing, not as a boss, but in a tone that felt personal. "You're talented, Alex. You just need to trust yourself more," she told me once, her voice low, her hand briefly brushing the back of my chair, as she leaned closer to see my work. The gesture was casual, but I felt a spark shoot through me that I quickly dismissed. I told myself it was normal. Bosses noticed hard-working employees, didn't they? They gave opportunities to people who showed potential. And yet, with each passing day, I couldn't help but notice how different it felt with her. The way she looked at me during meetings, how she lingered a little longer when she came by my desk, the softness in her voice that she didn't use with anyone else. At first, it only made me proud. I felt valued, important in a company where I was still finding my place. But pride slowly gave way to nervousness. I would spend extra minutes choosing what to wear in the morning, wondering, though I never admitted it aloud, if she would notice. When she complimented my work, I blushed a little more than I should have. And when she praised me in front of others, I felt an excitement that went beyond professional satisfaction. At home, I would tell my fiancé about the recognition I was getting at work. He would smile, proud and supportive, reminding me how hardworking I was. "See? I told you they'd see your worth," he'd say, pulling me into a warm hug. His love was constant, steady, like the foundation of a house that could never crumble. Yet, a part of me couldn't stop thinking about the flicker of fire in my boss's eyes when she looked at me. It was confusing, and a little terrifying, but also thrilling. I had always imagined my career as a straight path: work hard, earn recognition, move forward. I had never thought it would also stir something inside me that had nothing to do with spreadsheets or presentations. Still, I brushed the thought aside. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe this was just what it felt like to finally be seen. But deep down, I knew something had begun the moment I stood in that conference room, and denial's eyes lingered on me longer than they should have. Something that would soon complicate everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and myself. It was a Tuesday evening when everything changed. Most of the office had cleared out hours ago, leaving only the faint hum of air conditioners and the soft glow of desk lamps scattered around the floor. I was finishing up some reports when Denial appeared at my desk, her heels clicking softly against the polished tiles. "Alex," she said, her voice calm but carrying a weight I couldn't quite place, "can you stay back for a while? There are some things I'd like us to go over." I glanced at the clock. It was almost 8 p.m. Normally, I would have excused myself. My fiancé often worried if I stayed out too late, but something in her tone made me agree without hesitation. "Of course," I replied. She gave a small smile, one that didn't feel strictly professional, and walked toward her office. I gathered my things and followed her, my heartbeat quickening for reasons I tried to ignore. Her office was dimly lit, only the desk lamp casting a warm glow across the room. The blinds were drawn, making the space feel smaller, more intimate. She gestured for me to sit across from her, but instead of pulling out files or notes, she leaned back in her chair and studied me for a long moment. "You know," she began, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it, "when I first saw you giving that presentation, I thought, there's someone who knows how to hold herself. Confident, determined, passionate. I admire that." I felt my cheeks warm. "Thank you," I said quietly, unsure where this conversation was headed. She sighed, running her fingers across the edge of her desk. "But it's not just your work, Alex. It's you. The way you carry yourself, the way you light up when you talk about things that matter to you. You remind me of something I thought I'd lost." Her eyes were distant for a moment, as if she was speaking more to herself than to me. The silence stretched, and I shifted in my seat, suddenly aware of how close we were, how the air between us felt charged with something unspoken. Then she leaned forward, her gaze locking onto mine. "I know this may come as a shock, but I need to say it. Alex, I have feelings for you." My heart stopped. For a moment, I thought I had misheard. "What?" I whispered, my voice trembling. Her lips curved into a bittersweet smile. "I can't hide it anymore. I think about you all the time. I know you're younger, and I know I'm your boss, but this isn't about power or authority. It's about how deeply you've touched something in me. Something I thought was gone forever." I froze, my mind spinning. My fiancé's face flashed in my thoughts, his warm smile, his steady presence, the way he always supported me. I was engaged. I was supposed to be happy, settled, certain of my future. And yet, here was this woman, powerful and elegant, looking at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. I don't know what to say," I stammered. "This is unexpected." "I understand," she said gently. "But I needed you to know. Because I can't keep pretending. Every time I see you, it gets harder not to reach out, not to show you how much you mean to me." I shook my head, my hands trembling in my lap. "But I'm engaged. I love him. Her eyes softened, but her voice carried quiet conviction. I know. And I don't want to take you away from him. I'm not asking you to choose between us, at least not now. What I'm saying is, let me be part of your life too. Let me love you in the way I can. Let me show you care, attention, passion. You don't have to give up what you already have to experience what I'm offering. Her words hit me like a storm. It was irrational, it was wrong, it was complicated, but there was something intoxicating about the way she said it. I wanted to push back, to say no, to walk out of that office and never look back. But instead, I sat there, staring at her, caught in a whirlpool of emotions I couldn't escape. Inside, a battle raged. My fiancé was everything I had ever wanted, kind, patient, the man who had stood by me through thick and thin. He was safe, reliable, and he loved me with a devotion that felt unshakable. But denial, she was a flame. She was intensity and depth and the kind of magnetic pull that made me question everything I thought I knew about myself. Why me? I asked finally, my voice barely above a whisper. Her expression softened into something almost vulnerable. Because you make me feel alive again. Because when I look at you, I see possibility, hope, a spark I thought I'd lost years ago. I don't want to lose that. The silence between us grew heavy, filled with the sound of my own uneven breathing. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that I wasn't that person for her. But the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I whispered, this isn't fair. To him. To me. To you. Life isn't always fair, she murmured, leaning closer. But it's real. And what I feel for you, Alex, it's real. All I ask is that you don't shut the door before you've even looked through it. Her hand reached across the desk, stopping just short of mine, as if waiting for permission. I didn't move. My heart pounded, my body frozen between desire and guilt. For a moment, I considered pulling away, standing up, ending this before it could spiral further. But instead, I sat there, torn apart by the weight of two different loves, one steady and safe, the other fiery and unpredictable. As I sat down at the table, I noticed he had left one of those notes there for me. On a small piece of paper, written in his familiar handwriting, were the words, "Don't forget how amazing you are. I am proud of you." My throat tightened. He must have written it knowing how important today's presentation had been. I thought back to our first date, years ago. It had been in a small cafe near my university, a place I almost didn't go to because I was buried under assignments. But he'd insisted, calling me 3 times until I agreed. When I finally arrived, flustered and late, he had been waiting with 2 cups of coffee and a smile so patient it disarmed me. "I thought you weren't coming," I had said, half teasing. "I would have waited all night if I had to," he'd replied without hesitation. That was him, steady, unwavering, the kind of man who believed love wasn't about grand gestures, but about showing up, every single day. And then there was the night he proposed. We were walking along the river, the city lights shimmering on the water, when he stopped suddenly. I remember the nervous way he fumbled with his pocket, his hands shaking as he pulled out the ring. "I don't have a speech," he had said with a nervous laugh, "but I do have a promise. To always choose you, in the good and the bad, in the simple and the complicated. So, will you marry me?" Tears had blurred my vision as I nodded, whispering yes, because in that moment, I couldn't imagine a life without him. And yet, here I was now, hiding something from him. Something that gnawed at me every time he looked at me with those trusting eyes. As we ate dinner, he asked about my day, genuinely interested in every detail. I told him about the meeting, about how successful it had been. I left out the part where my boss had confessed her feelings. I left out the part where my world had shifted in ways I couldn't explain. The guilt was sharp, like a stone lodged in my chest. He deserved honesty, he deserved all of me, but I couldn't bring myself to break his heart with the truth, not when I wasn't even sure what the truth was. Later, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, he absent-mindedly reached for my hand and squeezed it. Just that small gesture made my eyes sting with tears. His love was quiet, but it was constant. Like a lighthouse guiding me home, even when I didn't realize I was lost. And then, unbidden, Denial's face flashed in my mind, the intensity in her eyes, the way her voice trembled with vulnerability when she confessed her feelings. My chest tightened. How could two people make me feel so completely different? With him, I felt safe, cherished, anchored. With her, I felt alive, electric, seen in a way that made my pulse race. One was the steady warmth of a fire on a winter night, the other was a wildfire, dangerous but impossible to look away from. I leaned my head against his shoulder, closing my eyes. He kissed the top of my head without a word, as if he could sense the heaviness inside me. "I'm lucky to have you," he whispered, and I wanted to say it back. I wanted to tell him that he was my anchor, the man who kept me steady when the world threatened to pull me under. But the words stuck, tangled up in the guilt I carried. Because part of me wasn't just his anymore. Part of me was still back in that office, in the dim light, with Denial's voice echoing in my ears. "All I ask is that you don't shut the door before you've even looked through it." I squeezed his hand tighter, hoping he couldn't feel the storm raging inside me. The days that followed felt like living two lives at once. In the mornings, I woke up beside my fiancé, his arm wrapped around me, his breathing steady and comforting. He'd kiss my forehead and whisper, "Good morning, love," in that gentle way of his. And at night, when I stayed late at the office, my phone buzzed with messages from Denial, short, thoughtful notes that carried a weight I couldn't ignore. "Don't forget to eat something. I know you're tired, but you're doing so well. Thinking of you." At first, I told myself they were just harmless words. But when I caught myself smiling at my phone in the middle of typing a report, my chest fluttering at the sight of her name, I knew they weren't harmless at all. One evening, she appeared at my desk just as I was about to leave. In her hands, she carried a cup of coffee, the kind she knew I liked. "Long day?" she asked, placing it gently in front of me. "Yeah," I admitted with a tired smile. "But this helps." "Thank you." Her eyes lingered on mine, soft and searching. "Anything for you, Alex." Those words stayed with me all night, echoing in the quiet corners of my mind even as I drove home to the man who had made my favorite pasta and was waiting for me at the table with 2 glasses of wine. My fiancé noticed the exhaustion on my face. "You've been working too hard," he said, sliding the plate toward me. "You need to take care of yourself. Promise me you'll get some rest this weekend." I nodded, my throat tightening with guilt. He was always so thoughtful, so attuned to what I needed before I even asked. And yet, even as I sat across from him, I couldn't stop replaying Denial's smile in my mind, the way her hand had brushed mine earlier when she handed me the coffee. It was like living in 2 different worlds, one steady and grounded, the other unpredictable and thrilling. With him, love felt like home. The smell of morning coffee, the comfort of shared laughter over silly jokes, the security of knowing that no matter how rough the day had been, I had someone to fall back on. With her, love felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, the wind whipping at my face, my heart racing with both fear and exhilaration. She made me feel alive in a way I didn't know I was missing. The contrast tore me apart. My heart was split in 2, and my mind raced with guilt. Every time my fiancé kissed me, I wondered if he could sense the distance in my thoughts. Every time Denial's eyes lingered on me, I wondered if she knew how much space she had begun to occupy inside me. I told myself it couldn't last. That soon, I would have to choose. But in the meantime, I found myself caught in the dangerous middle, unable to let go of either. There were nights when Denial would call me after work, her voice low and intimate through the phone. "Are you home safe?" she'd ask. Yes, I'd whisper, lying beside my fiancé, who was already drifting into sleep. Good, she'd reply softly. I just wanted to hear your voice. And there were mornings when my fiancé would tuck a note into my lunch bag, or surprise me with flowers on a random Wednesday, reminding me of the constancy of his love. The guilt grew heavier each day, pressing against my chest like a weight I couldn't lift. But alongside it was a dangerous thrill, a secret fire that made my pulse quicken. One night, Denial leaned across my desk while we worked late, her perfume enveloping me, her presence overwhelming. You look tired, she murmured. You push yourself too hard. I forced a laugh. Part of the job, right? Her eyes searched mine. I mean it, Alex. You matter. To me. More than you realize. Her words hit me harder than I expected, and before I could respond, she gently brushed a strand of hair from my face. The touch was fleeting, but it sent shivers down my spine. That same week, my fiancé surprised me with a weekend getaway. Nothing extravagant, just a cozy cabin by the lake. He packed a basket with my favorite snacks, planned out hikes, and even brought along the novel I'd been meaning to read. As we sat by the fire that night, he wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and kissed my cheek. I want you to always know, he whispered, that no matter how busy life gets, you're my priority. Tears pricked my eyes. I smiled, leaning into him, but deep inside I felt like a fraud. I was giving him only part of myself, while another part belonged to someone else. The more love and care I received from both of them, the more the guilt twisted inside me. Yet, I couldn't walk away from either. With him, I had stability. With her, I had fire. And I was greedy enough to want both. Some nights, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, asking myself how long I could keep balancing on this razor's edge. But instead of finding clarity, I always found excuses. Just a little longer, I'd think. I'll figure it out later. For now, I'll keep both. The decision was selfish, and I knew it. But every time Denial's text lit up my phone, every time my fiancé held me close, I convinced myself that I could manage. That somehow, no one had to get hurt. But in my heart, I knew the truth. Secrets don't stay hidden forever. And when they finally come to light, they burn brighter than any fire I'd ever known. Still, I chose the temporary illusion. I chose to walk between two worlds, one built on stability and promises, the other on passion and intensity. And with every passing day, the guilt grew heavier, but so did the excitement. It was a dangerous game, and I was already too deep to turn back. It was late one Friday night, when Denial asked me to stay behind again. The office was nearly empty, the hum of the city faint beyond the tall glass windows. I told myself it was just another late work session, but the look in her eyes told me otherwise. She poured 2 glasses of wine from a bottle she had tucked away, her hand trembling slightly as she handed one to me. You know, Alex, she began, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it, sometimes I wonder how I survived before you came into my life. I froze, my glass halfway to my lips. What do you mean? She set her drink down and leaned forward, her gaze piercing. I've built this career, this image, this fortress around myself. Everyone thinks I'm strong, untouchable. But the truth is, I'm lonely. I've been lonely for years. And then you walked in. Her voice cracked, just barely. Now I don't know how to imagine my days without you in them. The rawness in her confession startled me. Denial never allowed cracks to show in her armor. But that night, she looked fragile, human in a way that scared me. I can't lose you, Alex, she whispered, her hand brushing against mine across the desk. I don't care if I have to share you. I just need you. Her words echoed in my chest long after I left her office. They followed me home, clinging to me like shadows. When I walked into our apartment, my fiancé was waiting with an excited smile. "I have something for you," he said, pulling me toward the living room. On the table sat a small box, wrapped carefully in silver paper. "What's this?" I asked, my voice shaky, still carrying the weight of denial's confession. "Open it," he urged. Inside was a delicate locket, engraved with our initials. When I opened it, I found two tiny photos, one of us on our first trip together, laughing with ice cream cones in our hands, and one of me on the day of his proposal, my face glowing with joy. "I wanted you to have something you can carry with you always," he said softly. "So that no matter how busy life gets, you'll never forget what we mean to each other." The lump in my throat grew so heavy I could barely speak. "It's beautiful," I managed, my fingers trembling as I held it. He reached over and fastened it around my neck. "I love you, Alex. More than anything. And I promise I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never doubt that." That night, lying beside him, I turned the locket over and over in my fingers. My chest ached with guilt. Denial's tearful confession, my fiancé's unwavering devotion, they collided inside me like waves crashing against a cliff. I couldn't keep both. I knew that now. One day, the truth would spill out, and when it did, someone would be shattered. Maybe both of them. Maybe me too. The weight of it broke me. I slipped quietly into the bathroom and sat on the cold tile floor, my hands covering my face as sobs shook my body. How had I gotten here? How had I let myself drift so far from the certainty I once had? My fiancé's love was safe, real, built on years of trust. Denial's love was fire, consuming, intoxicating. And I was caught in the middle, selfishly clinging to both, afraid to lose either. Tears streamed down my face as I whispered into the silence, "What am I doing? Who am I becoming?" I cried until my chest ached, until my eyes burned, until there was nothing left but exhaustion. When I finally returned to bed, my fiancé stirred, half asleep, and instinctively wrapped his arm around me, pulling me close. "Everything okay?" he murmured drowsily. "Yeah," I whispered, choking back fresh tears. "Everything's fine." But it wasn't fine. It was a storm, tearing me apart piece by piece. And for the first time, I admitted to myself that I couldn't keep walking this tightrope forever. A choice would have to be made. And no matter which way I turned, hearts would be broken. That night, sleep refused to come. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling while the steady rhythm of my fiancé's breathing filled the room. His arm rested around me, heavy with warmth, but my heart was restless. My mind spun in endless circles, two faces, two voices, two kinds of love. I closed my eyes, but instead of rest, memories came flooding in. First, denial. The fiery spark in her gaze, the way her presence commanded the room. I remembered the late nights at the office, her laughter echoing softly in the dim light, her voice whispering words that made my skin prickle with longing. She had awakened something in me I didn't even know was asleep. A hunger for intensity, for passion, for something that felt wild and unstoppable. But then, my fiancé's face appeared. His smile, warm and steady. I thought of the countless small moments, how he always brewed my coffee just the way I liked it, how he brushed my hair behind my ear when I was too tired to notice, how he never failed to kiss my forehead before leaving for work. His love wasn't fire, it was earth. Solid. Unshakable. Safe. The contrast nearly tore me apart. One gave me wings, the other gave me roots. I tossed and turned until finally, I slipped out of bed and sat by the window, staring out at the city lights. My chest ached with the weight of the decision I knew I had to make. True love, I realized, isn't measured by how hard your heart races when someone touches your hand. It's measured by who stays when the storms come. It's in the quiet sacrifices, the gentle patience, the shared dreams of tomorrow. Passion could ignite me, yes, But would it keep me warm when the fire faded? A tear slid down my cheek as I whispered into the night, "It's him. It has to be him." The decision didn't erase the ache in my chest, but it brought clarity. Denial had given me something I would always treasure, a glimpse into the depths of desire, into parts of myself I hadn't known existed. But my future, my anchor, my safe harbor, was with the man sleeping peacefully in the next room. The next day, I asked Denial if we could talk. We sat in her office, the blinds half drawn, sunlight spilling in faint golden strips across the floor. She was beautiful as always, her presence magnetic. But today, I saw the fragility beneath her sharp edges. She sensed it too. "You look distant," she said quietly, searching my eyes. "What's wrong, Alex?" My throat tightened. I took a deep breath, my hands trembling as I folded them in my lap. "Denial. I need to be honest with you. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep living between two worlds." Her lips parted slightly, as though she had braced for this moment, but still hoped it would never come. "You're choosing him," she said softly, not as a question, but as a statement. Tears blurred my vision. "I'm choosing the life I promised to him. The future we've built together. What you and I had, it meant something. It will always mean something. But it can't last. Not without breaking us both." She leaned back in her chair, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. For once, Denial didn't try to fight, didn't try to convince me otherwise. She just looked at me with a sadness so raw it nearly shattered my resolve. "I thought," she paused, her voice trembling. "I thought maybe you'd find in me what you didn't know you needed. That maybe you could love us both." "I do care for you," I whispered, my heart breaking with every word. "But care isn't enough to build a future on. Not when I've already promised my life to someone else. He deserves all of me, not pieces of me split between two worlds." Silence filled the office. Heavy. Painful. Finally, she nodded, swallowing hard. "Then go. Be with him. Just," she pressed a hand to her chest, as if steadying herself. "Don't forget me, Alex. Don't forget what we had." My tears spilled over. I never could. I stood to leave, but before I reached the door, she called my name. I turned, and she gave me a small, bittersweet smile. "Be happy. That's all I want for you." The words lodged in my heart as I walked out of her office, each step heavier than the last. But somewhere beneath the grief, I felt a flicker of peace. I had made the choice. I had chosen love, not fire. Roots, not wings. That evening, I went home to my fiancé. He looked up from the kitchen, where he was cooking dinner, and smiled at me as though I was his whole world. The sight of him nearly undid me. "Rough day?" he asked, setting down the spoon and pulling me into his arms. I buried my face in his chest, inhaling the familiar scent of him, letting his warmth steady me. "You have no idea," I whispered. He kissed the top of my head. "Whatever it is, we'll get through it. Together." I closed my eyes, clutching him tighter. For the first time in weeks, I felt a strange, beautiful relief. I had chosen. And though it meant leaving behind something wild and intoxicating, it also meant stepping fully into the life I had once dreamed of. Later that night, as we sat on the couch eating dinner, he laughed at something silly on TV. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized how lucky I was. His love wasn't dramatic or fiery, it was steady, consistent, patient. And in the end, that's what I needed most. Denial would remain a memory, a chapter etched into my story with fire and tears. But my future was here, with the man who had held my hand through everything, the man who promised me a forever that wasn't just words, but daily actions. And as I rested my head on his shoulder, the locket he had given me pressed against my heart, I knew I had chosen right, the morning after my decision felt strangely quiet, as though the world itself had paused to honor the weight of my choice. I had spent the entire night replaying memories, his laughter, her eyes, the promises we made, the risks we took. By sunrise, my heart was raw but steady. I knew what I had to do, and though the thought of it broke me, I was determined to let go with grace, not regret. When I walked into the office, she was waiting for me. My boss, this remarkable woman who had given me not just opportunities, but also pieces of her soul. Her face lit up when she saw me, but I could see the tiredness behind her smile, the kind of exhaustion that comes when love is carrying both hope and fear. My chest ached. "Alex," she whispered softly, as if my name itself was something fragile. "I didn't think you'd come in today. After last night, I thought you might." She trailed off, her eyes searching mine, desperate for an answer she was both hoping for and dreading. I reached for her hand. It trembled under my touch, but she didn't pull away. "You've been so good to me," I said, my voice thick. "You've shown me care, support, and love in ways I never expected. You believed in me when I was just another face in the office. You saw me, and that will always mean the world to me." Her eyes glistened. "Then why does this sound like goodbye?" I bit my lip, forcing myself not to cry. "Because it is," I whispered. "I can't give you half of me when someone else already holds my whole heart. It isn't fair to you, and it isn't fair to him. You deserve someone who can love you without hesitation, without guilt. And I can't be that person." Her tears spilled over, but she didn't break. She squeezed my hand tighter, and for a moment I thought she might beg me to reconsider. Instead, she nodded, her strength both humbling and heartbreaking. "I knew," she said quietly. "Deep down, I always knew. But I had to try, Alex. You made me feel alive again. For that, I'll always thank you." I leaned forward and hugged her tightly. She smelled of soft perfume and paper, the scent of long nights and unspoken dreams. "And I'll always thank you," I whispered against her shoulder, "for teaching me that love is not just about passion, it's also about letting go with grace." When I pulled away, her smile was sad but beautiful. She wasn't angry, she wasn't bitter. She was simply strong. And that was the last gift she gave me, the freedom to walk away without hate, only with love and respect. That evening, I went home to him, my fiancé, my anchor. He had no idea of the storm that had raged inside me these past weeks, no idea how close I had come to tearing apart everything we had built. But when I saw him waiting for me at the door, holding my favorite flowers and wearing that soft, hopeful smile, I knew I had chosen right. "Alex," he said, handing me the bouquet, "I thought you might like these after such a long day." I nearly broke down then and there. Not because of the flowers, but because of what they meant, his quiet way of always thinking of me, always loving me in the little ways that mattered most. I wrapped my arms around him, burying my face in his chest. "I love you," I whispered, my voice trembling. "I don't say it enough, but I do. More than anything." He kissed the top of my head, holding me tighter. "And I love you," he murmured. "Always. No matter what." We stood there for a long while, breathing in sync, hearts steady against each other. And in that moment, I realized something that went deeper than all my confusion, deeper than the guilt and the longing. Love wasn't about who made my pulse race faster, or who showered me with more attention. It was about who made my soul feel at home. That night, as we lay together, his hand curled gently around mine, I felt a peace I hadn't known in weeks. For the first time, there was no conflict, no voices pulling me in different directions. Just quiet certainty. I thought of her one last time, the way she had let me go, the tears in her eyes, the courage in her heart. I hoped she would find someone who could give her the love she deserved, someone unbroken by indecision. And I silently thanked her for showing me that love, in its truest form, is never selfish. As sleep pulled me under, I whispered to myself, I chose not just with my heart, but with my soul. And in that choice, I finally found peace.